All right, team, believe it or not, it has actually been a full year since my last Q&A video. And so given that we're in the very early phase of the new year, I thought it'd be fun to do another one. And so as always, I reached out to you over on Twitter, Instagram, and here on YouTube to see what questions you had for me. And so without further ado, let's start answering. All right, first question comes from Sir Katz over on Twitter, and apologies if I'm mispronouncing that name, but he asks, what phone do you find yourself coming back to the most and why? And as I alluded to in my best smartphones of the year video last month, right now it is the Pixel 7 Pro. And generally speaking, I do find myself coming back to Pixel phones, probably more so than any other device. There's quite a number of reasons for this, but to try and quickly sum up, I'd say the four key aspects that keep me coming back to the Pixel 7 Pro in particular are its amazing software, its excellent, well-rounded camera system that produces my favorite looking images out of any phone on the market, the fast and impressively bright display, and finally, the excellent haptics. These are all features at the absolute top of the priority list for me, hence why I'm using it as my everyday device right now. I will say I was really close to considering switching back to the Nothing Phone 1, as I much prefer its design with its flat display and symmetrical bezels, but the limited camera system, as well as the not as great haptics as the 7 Pro, stopped me from making that move. Next question comes from Surav Paul, who asks, what is the one thing you don't like on Android? And I actually had to think about this one for a little bit, but I did come up with an answer, and it may or may not surprise you, but for me, it's actually the smoothness of the camera experience that I feel leaves a lot to be desired on Android phones. And if you've ever used an iPhone side by side with an Android phone, then you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. For example, on an iPhone, whenever you tap the shutter button, the photo is captured immediately, resulting in a true frozen in time representation of what was happening at that exact millisecond. And whenever you tap to switch lenses, the lenses actually switch outrageously fast. And then finally, as soon as you capture an image on an iPhone, if you then open the photo immediately, then it's ready to go straight away without any extra time needed for processing. But for anyone who's used an Android phone, even high-end Android phones, then you'll know that these three aspects are definitely not the experience we've grown accustomed to. So I'd love to see Android catch up to iOS in terms of how smooth and seamless the camera experience is, because I reckon that would be amazing. But then to give some love back to Android, Victor Ocasio asks, what is your favorite thing about Android? And I have to say, for me, it's the flexibility of the entire software experience. Whether it be that I can sideload any app that I like, even if it's not available on the Play Store, or that I can install a third-party home screen launcher to make my phone look and feel any way that I like, or even just the fact that I can customize notifications so that they behave how I want them to. All of these aspects and more just make it really hard for me to use an iPhone for a long stretch of time because I've become so accustomed to the incredible flexibility that Android offers. All right, switching over to Instagram now, and Fixation on Death. Whoa, that's an interesting username. But they ask, where do you discover apps to install? So this process has grown and evolved over time, but there are kind of three main ways I find new apps each month, and they are, in no particular order, direct email correspondence from app developers themselves, online research, whether that be reading monthly Android app articles or watching older top apps videos from other creators. Firstly, to make sure that I'm not doubling up too much, but also to make sure that I'm not missing some absolute banger applications. And then finally, I've just recently started taking suggestions from my channel Discord as well. But if you yourself are looking for a way to quickly find incredible applications, aside from my monthly top Android videos, of course, then you should definitely check out my application called Shelf, which was just recently made free, as this features every single app I've ever featured on the channel and is now accepting user recommendations as well. Plus, it's just a really cool app, even if I do say so myself. All right, the right way _ asks, which apps do you use on a daily basis, the non-mainstream ones? And as you can probably guess, there are a lot of non-mainstream apps I use all the time, but if I had to give you just the absolute top ones, then in no particular order, they would be Boost for Reddit, Memorigi, Minutia, Palette, Pocket Casts, and the Solid File Explorer application. There you go. Under 97k underscore asks, what app idea do you currently have in mind that you want to create in the future? And funny that you should ask that, because there are a few new app concepts that my developer and I will be working on this year, but there are two in particular that I am really excited about. The first being a note-taking application that hopefully has the best design in the game. And the second is a wallpaper application that has more of a user-based approach to it. But that's all I can say for the time being. All right, over to questions from YouTube now. And this first one comes from Mike J, who says, give us your best phone build with features, flagship only. All right, you ready for this? So I would take the front display design from Samsung's Galaxy S22 devices. That is fully flat and very slim and symmetrical bezels. Then I would take the frosted back design from the iPhone 14 Pro lineup, except instead of that pretty standard square style camera unit on the back, I would instead use the camera unit design and side rails for that matter from the Pixel 7. The camera unit, because that particular bar style design prevents side to side wobble when the phone is lying flat on a surface, which is a super underrated feature in my opinion. But it has to be the regular Pixel 7's camera unit because it has a frosted finish as opposed to the glossy finish found on the 7 Pro. And that's the same reason I'd prefer the Pixel 7 side rails as well. Essentially, if I can have a phone that has almost no chance of getting fingerprints on it without the use of a case, then that would make me incredibly happy. Then I'd take the camera configuration from the Galaxy Ultra lineup with the ultra-wide, main 3x telephoto and 10x telephoto lenses, and I'd like to use the exact display and implementation that the iPhone 14 Pro lineup has, being 120Hz and incredibly bright. I'd also love to have Face ID from the iPhone lineup, as well as one of Samsung's under-display fingerprint sensors to go with, but with the Pixel's software implementation, whereby once your face is successfully scanned, that fingerprint icon becomes a button that you can press to unlock the phone, instead of just outright disappearing like it does on Samsung and many other Android phones. And then finally, I'd love to have the battery life from the iPhone 13 Pro lineup, believe it or not. And if you could give me the Pixel Experience software, but with the ability to customize the home screen launcher like you can on Samsung phones, then that entire phone would be, at least for me, easily the best phone out of any phone available right now. Okay, next question is, how important are haptics to you in a phone, and which phone do you think has the best haptics? And this one's pretty easy to answer because haptics are actually really, really important to me, and if an otherwise amazing phone has awful haptics, which has happened in the past, then it might just be enough to actually convince me to use a different phone altogether. And as for which phone I personally think has the best haptics, well, I actually think that crown goes to the Pixel 7 Pro right now, but I have to say, Samsung's Galaxy flagship devices also have amazing haptics, and it's also pretty hard to beat the always incredible haptics found in literally all iPhone devices. I'm actually really grateful that haptics are something that pretty much all flagship devices get at least close to right these days, but I'd love to see this becoming the norm even for mid-range and budget devices going forward. And last question is from Matt Blundell, who asks, do you think rooting your phone is still worth it, and what are your reasons for this? And for me personally, this answer always changes depending on a couple of key components. The first being how easy it is to actually root the device in question. And secondly, and this one is very niche, so bear with me, but whether the developers of third-party home screen launcher, Launcher, have updated their app to work with the version of Android I'm using. So firstly, I will much more readily root a Google Pixel phone given how easy the process is, but you'll pretty much never find me rooting a Samsung device because it's just that much harder to do. As for the Launcher part of the answer, well, to cut a long story short, ever since Google introduced navigation gestures many years ago, third-party launchers became a less than optimal experience, given that all the navigation-related animations became a little janky. Now, things have gotten better over time, but there's still nothing that compares to the absolute butter that is using navigation gestures alongside your phone's stock default launcher. In the past, Launcher has been a pretty cool root-only workaround that allows you to set it as the stock default launcher using a root-only module called Quick Switch. But anytime a new major version of Android is released, there's always a delay in a supported version of Launcher coming out. Now, at the time of making this video, Launcher has still yet to be officially updated to support Android 13, but there is a dev version apparently floating around somewhere that does work with Android 13. And so as soon as that does get released publicly, I'll probably go ahead and root my Pixel 7 Pro straight away so that I can start using it. But that's it. As always, a huge thank you to everyone that sent in questions, and apologies if I didn't get to yours in this video. And if I didn't, then feel free to drop a comment down below and I'll try and answer some of those in the coming weeks. Aside from that, hopefully you enjoyed the video. Thank you all very much for watching, and I will catch you later.